Imagine this. It's 3 a.m. in the mountains of Afghanistan. A terrorist cell thinks they're safe in their fortified compound. Suddenly, they hear something that makes their blood run cold. The haunting war cry of a Viking Berserker echoing through the night. But this isn't 793 AD. This is 2025, and these aren't ordinary Special Forces soldiers. What if I told you that the most feared warriors in human history, the Viking Berserkers, somehow found themselves fighting alongside modern Special Forces in 2025? What would happen when 1,000 years of pure, unbridled combat fury meets cutting-edge military technology? Today, we're diving into the most insane military scenario you never knew you needed to hear about. Let me paint you a picture of who these men really were. Viking Berserkers weren't just warriors, they were living weapons. The word berserk literally comes from these guys. Ber meaning bear, serk meaning shirt. They fought wearing bearskins, believing they channeled the spirit of the bear itself. But here's what most people don't understand about berserkers. These weren't just wild savages swinging axes randomly. These were elite warriors who underwent intense psychological and physical conditioning. Before battle, they would enter a trance-like state called berserker gang, a combination of meditation, breathing techniques, and possibly psychoactive substances that turn them into fearless fighting machines. Picture this. A 6'2" Norse warrior, muscles rippling under bare fur, eyes rolled back showing only whites, foam literally coming from his mouth, and the absolute certainty that death in battle would send him straight to Valhalla. Pain? What pain? Fear? They literally forgot what that word meant. They would bite their shields, howl like wild animals, and charge into battle completely naked because armor felt restrictive. Roman historians described watching berserkers in battle as witnessing demons in human form. These men would take wounds that should have killed them and keep fighting. They felt no pain during their berserker rage, and some accounts describe them bending iron with their bare hands. Now imagine that level of psychological conditioning combined with 2025 military training.
So how do Viking Berserkers end up in 2025? Let's say a secret military program called Project Valhalla discovered a way to bring these ancient warriors into our time. The Pentagon realizes that modern warfare isn't just about technology anymore. It's about psychological warfare, intimidation, and having soldiers who are absolutely, unconditionally unbreakable. The recruitment process would be unlike anything we've ever seen. These berserkers arrive in 2025 and immediately face a choice: adapt or be useless. But here's the thing about Vikings. They were actually incredibly adaptable. People forget that Vikings weren't just raiders. They were explorers, traders, and quick learners who adapted to every culture they encountered. The first challenge? Language barriers. But Vikings were polyglots who picked up languages quickly during their travels. Within weeks, our berserkers are speaking English with thick Norse accents, dropping phrases like, "By Thor's hammer, that tactical formation is brilliant." Next comes modern weapons training. Now you might think, how do guys who used axes and swords handle assault rifles? But remember, Vikings were master craftsmen and warriors who appreciated quality weapons. The first time a berserker holds an M4 carbine, he's not intimidated, he's impressed. This is a weapon worthy of the gods," he'd whisper, running his calloused fingers along the barrel. The really fascinating part? Their natural battlefield instincts are still completely relevant. Vikings were experts at reading terrain, understanding weather patterns, and psychological warfare. All of that translates perfectly to modern special operations. Now let's talk about what happens when you put 1,000-year-old warriors through modern special forces training. The drill sergeants think they're gonna break these guys like any other recruit. Boy, were they wrong. Day one of training, 5 a.m. wake-up call. While modern recruits are groaning and stumbling out of bed, the berserkers have already been awake for an hour, sharpening their combat knives and braiding their beards. The drill sergeant starts screaming in their faces, and instead of intimidation, he sees something in their eyes that makes him take a step back. These aren't 18-year-old kids from suburbia. These are men who've charged into shield walls knowing they might die before sunset. Physical training? Laughable. Modern Special Forces training is designed to push human limits, but Berserkers already lived beyond human limits. While other recruits are struggling with 100 push-ups, Gunnar the Blood Axe is cranking out 300 and asking if there's anything heavier than these toy weights. The really interesting part comes during psychological conditioning. Modern military tries to break you down mentally and build you back up as a soldier. But you can't break down someone who's already conquered every fear known to mankind. The psychological evaluators are fascinated. These men show zero PTSD markers, zero anxiety, and an almost supernatural ability to compartmentalize violence. But here's where it gets really wild. They start teaching the modern soldiers. Ragnar Ironbeard pulls aside a Navy SEAL and says, "Your breathing technique before combat, it's good, but let me show you how we prepared for Berserker Gang." Suddenly, Special Forces operators are learning 1,000-year-old meditation techniques that make them calmer and more focused than any modern training ever could. The obstacle courses become legendary. While modern soldiers use technique and equipment, Berserkers just overcome. Rope climbing? They go up hand over hand like it's nothing. Wall climbing? They literally throw each other over 12-foot barriers. The instructors stop timing them because they're breaking every record by minutes, not seconds.
6 months later, Task Force Valhalla gets their first deployment. The mission? Infiltrate and neutralize a heavily fortified terrorist compound in Syria. Intelligence suggests 50-plus hostiles, advanced weaponry, and hostages. The mission briefing is unlike anything the modern military has ever seen. The Berserkers listen to the tactical overview with complete focus, asking surprisingly sophisticated questions about enemy positions and extraction routes. But when the commander finishes, Magnus the Skull Crusher raises his hand and says, "This sounds like raiding a monastery, but with better weapons. We understand." The insertion goes according to plan, until it doesn't. The helicopters take heavy fire and have to drop the team 2 kilometers from the target. The modern Special Forces start calculating new approach routes, but the Berserkers are already moving. "The gods have given us a longer hunt," growls Eric Ironside. "This just means more glory." As they approach the compound, something magical happens. The Berserkers' ancient tactical instincts merge with modern training. They're reading the terrain like they're approaching a Saxon fortress, but they're using thermal imaging and satellite communications. They position themselves using 1,000-year-old flanking tactics, but with modern sniper rifles and night vision. The real shock comes when the shooting starts. Remember, Berserkers train their entire lives to fight in the chaos of medieval battle, where you could die from any direction at any moment. Modern firefights, with their cover-based tactics and ranged weapons, actually feel safer to them than charging into a shield wall with nothing but an axe. But here's where their berserker nature becomes absolutely terrifying in modern combat. When the enemy starts using heavy weapons and the modern soldiers have to take cover, the berserkers enter their ancient battle trance. Suddenly you have warriors who are completely immune to fear, suppressively firing assault rifles while advancing directly into enemy positions. The enemy fighters have never experienced anything like this. They're used to modern soldiers who use tactics, take cover, and retreat under heavy fire. But Vikings? Vikings see heavy fire as just another challenge the gods have placed in their path to Valhalla. Within hours of Task Force Valhalla's first deployment, something unprecedented happens. Word spreads through terrorist networks about the demon soldiers who cannot be killed. Social media explodes with shaky phone footage of massive, bearded warriors walking through gunfire like it's a light rain, war crying in an ancient language that sounds like it came from hell itself. The psychological impact is immediate and devastating. These are enemies who face Navy SEALs, SAS, and Spetsnaz without breaking. But there's something primal about facing warriors who genuinely don't fear death that breaks the human spirit in a way that modern soldiers can't replicate. Think about it from the enemy's perspective. You're in a firefight, and suddenly you hear this bone-chilling howl echoing off the mountains. You look through your scope,
And instead of a soldier taking cover, you see a 6'4" bearded giant in full tactical gear charging directly at your position, screaming Odin at the top of his lungs while firing an LMG from the hip. The Berserkers don't just win battles, they win wars through sheer psychological dominance. Enemy recruitment plummets because who wants to sign up to fight literal Vikings? Surrenders increase by 300% because facing modern special forces is one thing, but facing Berserkers feels like challenging the gods themselves. But here's where their Berserker nature becomes absolutely terrifying in modern combat. Magnus the Skull Crusher suggests they start live streaming their war cries before raids. If we can strike fear into their hearts before we even arrive, the battle is already won. Suddenly, the most ancient form of psychological warfare is being broadcast on TikTok. The intelligence value becomes incredible. Captured enemies start talking immediately, not because of enhanced interrogation techniques, but because they're convinced they've been captured by supernatural warriors. Please, one captured fighter begs, just don't let the demons eat my soul.
So what happens when Viking Berserkers join Special Forces in 2025? You get the most effective military unit in human history. You get warriors who combine 1,000 years of combat experience with cutting-edge technology. You get soldiers who are literally incapable of giving up, breaking down, or retreating. But more than that, you get something the modern military didn't even know it was missing. Warriors who fight not just for country or mission, but for glory and honor that transcends death itself. Every modern Special Forces operator who works alongside them comes back changed, carrying some of that Viking mentality that says there are things worth dying for, and if you're gonna fight, you fight with everything you have. The program expands. Soon, Task Forces Valhalla, Midgard, and Asgard are operating on every continent. Enemy forces around the world start surrendering at the mere mention of the Viking units. Modern warfare is fundamentally changed because someone finally figured out how to weaponize the most fearsome warriors who ever lived. The last scene I want you to imagine. It's 2026, and a young Special Forces recruit is struggling through his first deployment. He's scared, tired, and ready to quit. Then Ragnar Ironbeard sits down next to him and says, "Boy, fear is just another enemy to conquer. Your ancestors faced saber-toothed tigers with nothing but pointed sticks. You have the finest weapons and training in human history. The gods didn't bring you this far to let you fail now." That recruit goes on to become one of the most decorated soldiers of his generation. Because sometimes, the old ways are still the best ways. And sometimes, the most advanced military technology in the world needs 1,000-year-old warrior spirit to reach its true potential. The Berserkers didn't just join Special Forces in 2025, they reminded the modern world what it truly means to be a warrior. What did you think of this impossible scenario? Would modern Berserkers be unstoppable, or would they struggle to adapt? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more impossible military scenarios that'll blow your mind.